For 50 years, the official record said Boris Onishchenko was disqualified from the 1976 Olympics for cheating with a rigged sword. That's the story they tell. It isn't what happened. The Soviet Sports Committee made sure you'd never learn what they did to him after the cameras stopped rolling, because erasing a man was easier than explaining how his weapon got built in the first place. Onishchenko wasn't some fringe competitor. He was a Red Army lieutenant colonel, a three-time Olympian, and one of the best modern pentathletes alive. In Montreal, the Soviet Union needed pentathlon gold. It was 1976. The Cold War ran through every event, and a win in an obscure five-discipline sport carried weight far beyond the scoreboard. Onishchenko was supposed to deliver it. Nobody watching the fencing round that July morning expected they were about to witness the fastest fall from grace in Olympic history. They just knew something felt wrong. Someone made sure you'd never hear how wrong. The official version is simple. During the épée round, British pentathlete Jim Fox felt a hit register on his scoring light without Onishchenko's blade ever touching him. Officials pulled Onishchenko's second épée and examined the grip. Inside, hidden beneath the handle, was a small manual switch, a circuit that let him trigger a scoring hit at will, no contact required. He was disqualified within hours, expelled from the games, and flown home before the closing ceremony. The press nicknamed him Boris the Cheat. That part of the story is true, but it's also the version the Soviet Union was relieved to let stand, because it stopped at the sword. It never asked who built it. Here's the crack in the record. That épée wasn't a personal modification some paranoid athlete rigged in a hotel room. Soviet Olympic fencing equipment moved through federation channels, inspected, prepped, and issued by state technicians before competition. A wired grip with a hidden trigger doesn't pass through that pipeline by accident. Teammates later admitted quietly that they'd suspected something for over a year. Onishchenko had been winning implausibly close bouts since 1974. If that's true, the sword in Montreal wasn't the beginning of the fraud. It was just the day someone finally noticed. And that obvious explanation, one greedy officer acting alone, doesn't hold up either. A single switch is a mistake. A pattern going back 2 years using equipment issued by the state is a system. If Onishchenko built and hid that device entirely on his own, why did his punishment come not from a tribunal, not from an investigation, but from a phone call that made him disappear within weeks? Here's what they actually buried. Soviet authorities didn't just send Onishchenko home in disgrace, they erased him. His name was stripped from Soviet sports publications. His Master of Sport title, the highest athletic honor in the USSR, was revoked. He was quietly discharged from his military post, his rank made meaningless. State media never printed the word cheating in connection with his name again, not because they defended him, but because acknowledging the scandal meant acknowledging Soviet equipment, Soviet officials, and a Soviet training pipeline that let it happen. It was cleaner to make the man vanish than admit the machine was broken. Rumors placed him in Kiev afterward, driving a taxi, stripped of the privileges that came with Olympic status, a decorated officer reduced to anonymity almost overnight. No formal reckoning, no public account, just silence enforced from above. The same apparatus that turned Olympic medals into geopolitical currency turned its back on the one man who embarrassed it and made sure the embarrassment left no paper trail. That's the 50 years. 50 years of an official story that begins and ends with one sword, when the real question was always who else touched it before it reached his hand. The consequences rippled past Onishchenko himself. Modern pentathlon overhauled its equipment inspection rules within a year, a direct response to a scandal officials publicly blamed on one man's greed. But the human cost of the cover-up never got acknowledged. Onishchenko died in 1998, largely forgotten, with no statement from Russian or Soviet sporting bodies about what was actually done to him in the weeks after Montreal. His British teammates got documentaries. His own federation gave him silence. The man who cheated became a punchline. The system that may have handed him the weapon was never asked a single public question. So here's what's still buried. Nobody has ever named the technician who wired that épée or the official who approved it for competition. Nobody has explained why a decorated lieutenant colonel accepted total professional erasure without ever speaking publicly in his own defense. Not one interview, not one memoir, not one denial. Was he protecting someone above him, all the way to his death? What do you do with a man's silence when the alternative might have been worse than disgrace?